Hi, my name's Brad Haacke. I'm a fraud product manager at Fifth Third Bank in the financial crime area. I also run a blog called fraudwit.com. And today I'm going to talk about targeted seniors. We're seeing a lot of scams out there, a lot of different types of abuse situations going on with elderly people. And so I just want to talk about, I'm going to run through a scenario that we recently saw and kind of walk you through different parts of that, different opportunities that we as fraud fighters have within a scam life cycle. So today we're going to talk about Mary. Mary was involved in a romance scam, and a lot of that comes from things like isolation and being lonely. And so she was enticed through a dating app to start talking with a fraudster. And what she ended up finding out was that it was a scam. So the first part of this starts out on the banking side with her depositing a check. The scammer gives her a $15,000 check that he has her deposit into her account. Once that item is available to her before it can alert or return, he has her send out money. And the way he did that in this particular instance was $4,000 cash sent out through the mail. He also had her pick up $10,000 in cashier's checks, also sent through the mail, and then $1,000 sent to a crypto account. And so she deposits it, the money goes out, and then a few days later it alerts and the item returns, creating a large overdraft scenario for Mary. So talking with the customer, we were able to establish what took place. And in this particular instance, it actually worked out really well because we got everything escalated to who we needed to within the postal inspectors. And so they were actually able to recover all but $1,000. So yeah, that $1,000 that went to the crypto account, unfortunately, we were not able to recover on. But an investigator talking with Mary, figuring out what happened, where she sent the $14,000, that helped us to be able to recover that money on her behalf. Unfortunately, on this one, she didn't just lose the $1,000. She had been involved with this scammer for over a year, and she had actually withdrawn money from her 401k account, from her retirement account, which is very concerning. So this just kind of emphasizes you've got a vulnerable population. Many elderly people are lonely. They're looking for companionship, and they're talking to these people that they don't know, for extended periods of time in a lot of cases. This one, like I said, this one went on for a year, and as she's running out her legitimate funds, the scammer is also trying to think of different ways to get even more money out of her. And that's where the counterfeit check came in. She deposits this counterfeit check because she's already drained a lot of her 401k, a lot of her retirement. On this one, it was very sad. She broke down crying when she realized what had taken place because it had gone on for so long, and she was heavily invested in this love interest. Many elderly consumers are facing similar scams being communicated through these scammers. And so here's just some of them that we have that we're seeing a lot of. You've got romance scams that are out there, similar to what Mary participated in. You've got what are called grandparent scams, which are targeting specifically the elderly, pretending to be a grandchild or a child in need of desperate help. You've got your tech support scams, and then one that we're seeing a lot of lately, and these go for really high amounts, are authority scams. And that's where somebody is pretending to be an authority figure, and they're contacting these consumers, these elderly consumers, and they're threatening them or coercing them into sending a lot of money out. And so that can get in hundreds of thousands of dollars per event in some cases. And then the last thing just to be aware of is general financial exploitation and elder financial abuse. So we're not talking as much scam in this sense. We're talking more along the lines of a a family member or somebody that's supposed to be protecting the elderly person taking advantage of them. And so that's a very concerning thing as well. So Mary's example, I think it can be used to show where scam education and escalation can be applied through the scam life cycle. So I want to go through the scam life cycle in this particular instance and just kind of point out a few places that you can hone in on when you come across similar events. And so the first thing is proactive education. Scam information and education provided to Mary could have helped her in this situation. If she would have been able to recognize the red flags associated with the scam, she would have never participated. She would have never got involved emotionally with this scammer who ended up defrauding her. And so just trying to get the information out to consumers across a wide range of scams is essential to being able to prevent them. It's also essential in helping other people being able to protect friends and family from those scams, which kind of leads into the next thing, which is frontline identification. So in every scam, there's some kind of interaction that goes on between the victim and other people. That could be a banker, it could be a family member. Just making sure that those people are also educated on the red flags associated with these types of scams can go a long way. So if somebody saw her depositing the check or trying to send out these funds, if they had knowledge of how this scam worked, they could then talk with her and prevent it from happening. The next one is back office identification. So these are the fraud fighters. These are the people that are on the phone with customers all day. They're the people that are working the alerts. And if they know the types of scams to look out for, then they can get to it before the money even goes out as well. And so making sure that your fraud operations team is aware of these schemes and how they work and how to stop them is another place in that scam life cycle. But the problem is, as we go through the scam life cycle, we've got more and more risk of either the consumer or the financial institution losing money in the process. And so the next one is post-scam recovery. And this is kind of what happened with Mary's case. Mary went through the whole thing. She didn't recognize it. Nobody else recognized it. And she was able to get some of the money out. And so the point is, at any place, you need to be ready to either stop the fraud from occurring or going after recovery efforts. And so with this one, it was an investigator who contacted law enforcement. They contacted the postal inspector and they worked on the customer's behalf to get that money back. And so, you think the funds are gone, they're not always gone. Sometimes there are opportunities to be able to recover on these types of events. And then the last thing is just to summarize and socialize the story. So a lot of these events are very devastating to people. And you might not think that there's a lot of good that can come from that, but being able to tell these stories, getting these out to consumers and getting these out to people on either the front or the back lines of stopping the fraud, that can really go a long way, because Mary's not the last romance scam to occur. There will be other people in very similar situations depositing the same fraudulent checks, utilizing their own funds to send out to a scammer. And so just making sure that we socialize these individual stories can also help in the fight against these types of scams against the elderly. And so one last thing to point out is just how we change and create a new culture around fraud. It goes unnoticed by a lot of people, and that becomes very problematic. We need to be better engage the culture to be able to prevent the vulnerable from being defrauded, and also to create some resilience around stopping people from committing the fraud, because that's the other thing that we're seeing as well. Social media is big on this. You've got a lot of a lot of scammers and a lot of fraudsters out there that they get recruited and they get into this culture of fraud. And so you've got to fight against it a couple different ways. One, for the victims, and two, also for the would-be suspects that are out there trying to scheme and steal people's money. So that's what I've got for you today. If you are interested in connecting, I'm happy to connect. I'm on LinkedIn, and then I also have a personal fraud blog called fraudwit.com. Thank you so much.